My name is Morgan, and for as long as I can remember, I have loved the smell of old wood and lavender. It was the scent of my mother, Evelyn, and it was the scent of the house she left me. The estate, as my neighbors called it, wasn't just a building made of brick and mortar. It was a sprawling, three-story Victorian home in the quiet suburbs of Connecticut, filled with creaky floorboards that sang when you walked on them and windows that framed the sunset like living paintings. When my mother passed away from cancer when I was 22, she didn't leave the house to my father, Roger. She left it to me. It was her final act of protection. She knew Roger was a man with a good heart but a weak spine, and she knew exactly the kind of woman he would attract once she was gone. She was right. 6 months after the funeral, Roger married Lorraine. Lorraine was the kind of woman who smiled with her mouth but never with her eyes. She brought with her a daughter from a previous marriage, Bianca, who was 8 years younger than me. Growing up, I was the one who studied hard, built my own business, and tried to keep the peace. Bianca was the one who broke things and blamed the cat. Now, at 32, I thought I had finally carved out a peaceful life. I was the CEO of Ecoloom, a sustainable fashion brand I built from the ground up in my mother's old sewing room. I had money in the bank, a beautiful home, and I kept my distance from the toxic trio of Roger, Lorraine, and Bianca. Or at least, I tried to. I was sitting in my home office, reviewing fabric samples for the spring line, when my phone buzzed. It was my father. I let it ring twice before picking up, a knot already forming in my stomach. "Morgan, honey," Roger's voice cracked through the speaker. He sounded tired. "We have a situation." "What kind of situation, Dad?" I asked, rubbing my temples. "It's the condo," he said. "We lost it. The investment Lorraine's brother convinced us to make, it went belly up. The bank is foreclosing next week." I closed my eyes. This wasn't the first time. Lorraine had a gambling spirit, and my father had an inability to say no. "I can send you $5,000 to help with a deposit on an apartment," I said, my voice steady. "But that is it. $5,000 won't cover first and last month's rent in this market, Morgan." Lorraine's voice screeched from the background. She was obviously listening in. "Does she know we are going to be homeless? Does she even care?" "I care, Dad," I said, ignoring Lorraine. "But I am not an ATM." "We don't need money," Roger said quickly, trying to de-escalate. "We just need a place to stay. Just for a little while. Until we get back on our feet. Maybe 3 months?" The silence stretched between us. My mother's house was my sanctuary. It was the one place where I felt safe, where the ghost of Evelyn still felt warm and welcoming. Letting Lorraine and Bianca in felt like inviting termites into a wooden ship. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. "Please, Morgan," he begged, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm an old man. I don't have anywhere else to go." I looked at the portrait of my mother hanging over my desk. Her eyes seemed to be warning me. But before I could answer, the front door opened downstairs. "Honey, I'm home." It was Garrett. My husband. My rock. Or so I thought. He walked into the office, looking dashing in his suit, his tie loosened just the way I liked. He saw the distress on my face and immediately came over, wrapping his arms around me. "Hang on, Roger," I told my dad, muting the phone. "What's wrong?" Garrett asked, kissing my forehead. "My dad and Lorraine lost their house," I whispered. "They want to move in." Garrett didn't look annoyed. He didn't look worried. He looked thoughtful. And that should have been my first warning sign. I met Garrett 3 years ago at a business conference. He was an accountant, sharp with numbers but soft with people. Unlike the men I usually dated, who were intimidated by my success or my inheritance, Garrett seemed to celebrate it. He helped me restructure Ecoloom's finances, turning a modest profit into a booming enterprise. When he proposed to me under the old oak tree in my backyard, I felt like I had finally found the partner my mother would have wanted for me. Standing in my office, Garrett took the phone from my hand. He looked me in the eye, his expression full of that calm, reasonable demeanor I loved so much. "Morgan," he said softly. "I know they are difficult. I know Lorraine drives you crazy and Bianca is a handful. But they are family. If we turn them away now, how will you feel if something happens to your dad?" "I'll feel peaceful," I wanted to say. But I didn't. Because Garrett knew exactly which button to push. He pointed to the photo of my mother. "What would Evelyn do?" he asked. "She was the most generous woman I never met. Would she let your father live in a motel?" It was a low blow, but it worked. Guilt, heavy and suffocating, settled in my chest. I unmuted the phone. "Fine," I said into the receiver. 3 months. Not a day longer. And there are rules. "Oh, thank God." Roger exhaled. I could hear Lorraine muttering something that sounded like "finally" in the background. "We will be there on Saturday," Roger said. When I hung up, Garrett hugged me tight. "You did the right thing, babe. I'm proud of you. Plus, it will be nice to have a full house. It's been too quiet here lately." He smiled, a perfect, reassuring smile. I didn't see the calculation behind it. I didn't see that he wasn't just opening the door for my family, he was unlocking the gates for an invasion. Garrett had recently become the CFO of Ecoloom. I had trusted him completely with the business. Keep the family and the money separate, my mentor, Margot, had warned me. But I had ignored her. Garrett was my husband. We were a team. That Saturday, the invasion began. I expected a few suitcases. Maybe a box or two. What arrived was a moving truck. I stood on the porch, wrapped in a cardigan against the chill, watching as movers hauled in boxes labeled fragile, Lorraine's wardrobe, and Bianca's shoes. "Whoa, wait a minute," I said, stepping forward as a mover tried to bring in a massive, gaudy leopard print armchair. "Where is that going?" "Living room, lady," the mover grunted. "No, it's not," I said firmly. "This is a temporary stay. We are not redecorating." "Morgan, relax," Garrett's voice came from behind me. He walked down the steps, clapping the mover on the shoulder. "Just put it in the garage for now. We'll sort it out later." He turned to me, lowering his voice. "Let's not start a war on day one, okay? They are stressed. Losing a home is traumatic." Then a car pulled up. Out stepped Bianca. At 24, my half-sister looked like she was auditioning for a reality TV show. She wore oversized sunglasses and was typing furiously on her phone. She didn't even look at me. She just pointed at the trunk. "Hey, can someone get my makeup case? It's heavy," she yelled at no one in particular. Roger climbed out of the driver's seat, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him. He gave me a weak hug. "Thank you, Morgan. You're a lifesaver." Lorraine followed, scanning the exterior of the house with a critical eye. "The paint is peeling on the shutters," was her greeting. "And the garden is overgrown. Evelyn never did have a green thumb, did she?" I clenched my fists in my pockets. "Hello to you too, Lorraine." "Well, aren't you going to invite us in?" she asked, clutching her purse like she was the Queen of England visiting a peasant. I stepped aside. As they walked past me into the foyer, the air in the house seemed to shift. The scent of lavender was instantly overpowered by Lorraine's heavy, cloying perfume. I looked at Garrett for support, but he was already busy helping Bianca with her bags, laughing at something she showed him on her phone. A cold shiver went down my spine. It wasn't the wind. It was the feeling that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. By the end of the first week, the concept of boundaries had been completely erased. The house, usually a temple of quiet productivity, had turned into a chaotic dormitory. Bianca treated the place like a hotel. She took 40-minute showers, draining the hot water tank every morning right before I needed to get ready for work. She left half-eaten yogurt cups on my antique coffee tables and complained loudly about the Wi-Fi speed in the guest wing. It's lagging, she whined at the dinner table on Tuesday. I can't even stream in 4K. Morgan, you seriously need to upgrade this. You have the money. The internet is fine for working, Bianca, I said, cutting my steak a little too aggressively. Maybe if you weren't downloading entire seasons of shows, it would be faster. I'm bored, she scoffed. It's not like there's anything else to do in this dusty old museum. Bianca, be nice, Roger mumbled into his potatoes, but he didn't look up. Garrett chimed in, pouring wine for everyone. I can look into a mesh network extender tomorrow, B. It's an easy fix. Thanks, Garrett, Bianca beamed at him, twirling a lock of hair around her finger. At least someone here cares about my basic human rights. I looked at Garrett, waiting for him to correct her, to remind her she was a guest. Instead, he just winked at her. Happy to help. But the real breaking point came on Sunday. I had spent the morning at the Ecoloom warehouse and came home early to grab some files. The house was suspiciously quiet. I walked into the dining room and froze. Lorraine was standing by the large oak china cabinet, my mother's pride and joy. The cabinet was open. Boxes were scattered on the floor. Lorraine was wrapping my mother's delicate, hand-painted floral tea set in newspaper. What are you doing? My voice came out as a low growl. Lorraine jumped, nearly dropping a saucer. Oh, Morgan. You startled me. I asked what you were doing with my mother's china, I said, stepping closer. Well, she sniffed, resuming her wrapping. I need space for my collection. I have these lovely Hummel figurines, and there's simply nowhere to display them. I thought we could box this old stuff up and put it in the attic. It's outdated anyway. Blood roared in my ears. Outdated? That set came from England. It was her grandmother's. It's just things, Morgan, Lorraine said dismissively. You shouldn't be so attached to material objects. It's unhealthy. Besides, we live here now too. We should feel at home. You are guests. I shouted. Put it back. Now. Morgan, keep your voice down, Garrett said, walking in from the kitchen with a sandwich. You're scaring your dad. She is packing away Mom's china, Garrett. I pointed a shaking finger at the boxes. Garrett sighed, looking at me like I was a toddler throwing a tantrum. Honey, Lorraine is just nesting. She's trying to contribute. Why do you have to be so territorial? It's just plates. It's not just plates, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. It's her. You're overreacting, Garrett said, placing a hand on Lorraine's shoulder. Lorraine, maybe leave the plates for now. Morgan is having a sensitive day. Fine, Lorraine huffed, throwing the newspaper onto the floor. I was just trying to help organize this clutter. You're welcome. They walked out of the room together, leaving me standing there with the ghost of my mother's tea set. I felt small. I felt foolish. And for the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Garrett was asleep beside me, his breathing deep and even. I reached out to touch his arm, needing reassurance, but he rolled over, turning his back to me. Garrett? I whispered. I'm tired, Morgan, he mumbled into his pillow. Don't start drama tonight. I pulled my hand back. The gap between us and the bed felt like a canyon. Down the hall, I could hear Bianca laughing on the phone and the television blaring from my father's room. My sanctuary was gone. And I had a sinking feeling that getting them to leave in 3 months was going to be a war I wasn't prepared for. 3 weeks into their stay, the tension in the house had become a physical weight, pressing down on my chest every time I walked through the front door. But I thought I still had my sanctuary, my office. Ecoloom was my baby, my safe space where logic and hard work ruled, not passive-aggressive comments about my cooking or complaints about the heating bill. That changed on a Tuesday morning. I walked into the Ecoloom headquarters, a converted warehouse with high ceilings and natural light, ready to review the Q3 marketing strategy. But when I reached my office, I found Garrett sitting at my conference table. Next to him, spinning idly in one of the ergonomic chairs, was Bianca. "Good morning," Garrett said, his voice bright. "We were just waiting for you." "Waiting for me?" I put down my bag, looking between them. Bianca was popping chewing gum, scrolling on her phone. She didn't look up. "I had an idea," Garrett said, standing up and closing the distance between us. He put his hands on my shoulders, massaging them gently. "You know how we've been looking for a fresh perspective on our social media? Someone younger? Someone who understands the Gen Z vibe?" My stomach dropped. "Garrett, no. Hear me out," he pressed. "Bianca has a degree in communications. She's looking for work. If we hire her as a consultant, it gives her an income. If she has an income, she can save up for an apartment. And if she's working, she's out of the house and not driving Lorraine crazy." The logic was sound on the surface, but everything inside me screamed against it. "She barely graduated, Garrett. And we have a professional team." "Just a trial run," he pleaded. 3 months. Same timeline as their stay at the house. If she sucks, we cut her loose. Please, Morgan. Do it for the peace of the household. I looked at Bianca. She finally looked up, smirking. "I have over 5,000 followers on Instagram, Morgan. I know what I'm doing." Against my better judgment, against every professional instinct I had, I agreed. "Fine. A junior marketing consultant role. Probationary period. And you report to Sarah, the marketing director, not me." "Actually," Garrett interjected smoothly, "I was thinking she could report to me. Sarah is swamped, and since I handle the budget for freelancers, it makes sense administratively." I was too tired to fight him. Fine. It was a disaster from day one. Bianca treated the office like her personal social club. She would arrive at 10:30, holding a venti latte, and spend the first hour fixing her makeup in the bathroom. When she was at her desk, she was watching TikToks with the volume up. Whenever I tried to correct her, Garrett would appear out of nowhere. "She's just researching trends, Morgan," he would say, steering me away. Let creatives be creative. But the worst part wasn't the laziness. It was the intimacy. I began to notice things. Small things. When I walked into the break room, they would be standing close together by the coffee machine, talking in hushed tones. They would stop abruptly as soon as they saw me. "What are you two talking about?" I asked one afternoon, the suspicion gnawing at me. "Just budget allocations for the influencer campaign," Garrett said quickly. Too quickly. "Yeah," Bianca added, taking a sip of her coffee. Her eyes lingered on Garrett's face a second too long before she turned to me. "Boring finance stuff. You wouldn't be interested." Then there were the lunches. Garrett usually ate at his desk, buried in spreadsheets. But suddenly, he and Bianca were going out for strategy lunches 3 times a week. They would leave at noon and come back at 2, giggling like teenagers. "It's mentorship," Garrett told me when I confronted him in our bedroom one night. He was unbuttoning his shirt, not looking at me. "She's your sister, Morgan. I'm trying to help her grow up so she stops being a burden on us. You should be thanking me, not interrogating me." "It doesn't look like mentorship," I said quietly. "It looks like a date." Garrett froze. He turned around, his face twisted in disbelief. "Wow. Really? You're jealous of your own sister? That is sick, Morgan. She's a kid. And I'm your husband. I work my ass off for this company, for your family, and this is the thanks I get?" He stormed into the bathroom and slammed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. He had turned it around on me so fast I felt dizzy. Was I crazy? Was I just stressed and projecting my issues with Lorraine onto them? I went to sleep that night feeling guilty, apologizing to his back. I didn't know then that I was apologizing to a man who was already sharpening the knife. The universe has a funny way of revealing the truth. Sometimes it's a dramatic explosion, but for me, it was a dusty iPad and a rainy Sunday afternoon. It had been 6 weeks since my family moved in. The house felt smaller every day. Lorraine had taken over the kitchen, criticizing my overpriced organic vegetables and cooking heavy, greasy meals that smelled of fried onions. Roger spent his days watching cable news at full volume in the den. And Bianca. Bianca was everywhere Garrett was. On that Sunday, I decided to hide in the garage. I told them I was organizing old files, but really, I just needed silence. The garage was cold, smelling of gasoline and damp concrete. In the corner, stacked on a metal shelf, were boxes of old electronics I had been meaning to recycle. I was shifting a box when I saw it, Garrett's old iPad. It was a model from 3 years ago, with a cracked screen. He had tossed it in there when he upgraded to the Pro version, claiming it was dead and useless. On a whim, mostly out of boredom, I plugged it into an outlet near the workbench. I didn't expect it to turn on. But after a few minutes, the Apple logo glowed on the cracked glass. I waited. The device booted up. I expected it to be wiped clean, or at least password locked. But Garrett, in his arrogance or perhaps just laziness, had used the same passcode he used for everything, 1-2-3-4-5-6. I typed it in. The screen unlocked. At first, there was nothing interesting. Old apps, games he used to play. I was about to turn it off when a notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. Photos, uploading 3 new items. My heart skipped a beat. The iPad was connected to the house Wi-Fi. And because Garrett was still logged in with his Apple ID, it was syncing with his current devices. I tapped on the Photos app. The library began to populate. Most of it was mundane, screenshots of spreadsheets, a picture of a wine bottle, a meme. But then, 3 new photos loaded at the bottom. They were receipts. Garrett had a habit of taking photos of receipts for tax deductions. It was a habit I used to admire for its thoroughness. Now, it made my blood run cold. The first receipt was for a gas station in town. Normal. The second was for a parking garage near the office. Normal. The third receipt was from a restaurant called Le Petit Bistro. I zoomed in. The date was last Friday. The timestamp was 7:30 in the evening. I froze. Last Friday, Garrett had told me he was working late with the auditors. He had texted me at 8 o'clock saying, ordering pizza at the office. Don't wait up. I looked at the receipt again. 2 orders of escargot. 1 filet mignon. 1 lobster risotto. A bottle of Pinot Noir. Total, $340. This wasn't a solo dinner. And it certainly wasn't pizza with auditors. My hands started to shake. I scrolled back up to the Albums tab. I saw an album labeled Hidden. I tried to open it, but it required Face ID or a different password. I tried the generic one again. It didn't work. I went back to the receipt. Le Petit Bistro was romantic. It was intimate. It was the kind of place you took someone you wanted to sleep with. I sat on the cold concrete floor, clutching the cracked iPad. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe he took a client? But why lie about it? Why say he was eating pizza at the office? Then I remembered Bianca. Last Friday, Bianca had come home late, around 11. She had been humming, her cheeks flushed. When I asked her where she had been, she said, just out with some friends from college. I pulled up the calendar on the iPad. I cross-referenced the dates. 2 weeks ago, Garrett conference in Boston. Bianca, weekend trip to the city. 3 weeks ago, Garrett networking drinks. Bianca, late movie. The pattern was there. It wasn't a smoking gun, I didn't have a picture of them kissing, or a text saying I love you, but it was a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a cliff. I unplugged the iPad. I carefully wiped my fingerprints off the screen and placed it back on the shelf, exactly how I found it. I couldn't confront him yet. If I showed him the receipt, he would lie. He would say it was a client dinner he forgot to mention. He would say I was crazy, paranoid, controlling. He would turn the family against me even more. No. I needed more. I needed something undeniable. I needed to stop being the trusting wife and start being the CEO who investigates fraud. Dinner that night was an exercise in torture. Lorraine had made meatloaf. We sat around the dining table, the clinking of silverware the only sound breaking the heavy silence. Garrett sat across from me, looking relaxed, scrolling through emails on his phone while he ate. Bianca was next to him, texting under the table. I decided to test the waters. "How did the audit go on Friday, Garrett?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. I sliced a piece of carrot, not looking up. Garrett didn't miss a beat. "Brutal," he said, shaking his head. "Those guys from the IRS are thorough. We were stuck going over the payroll tax from 2023 until nearly 9. Did you guys end up getting that pizza?" I asked. "Yeah," he chuckled. "Pepperoni. Gave me heartburn all night." I looked up then. I looked right into his eyes. They were clear, blue, and utterly deceitful. He lied with the ease of breathing. "That's too bad," I said. I was craving French food on Friday. I almost drove by Le Petit Bistro, but I didn't want to go alone. For a split second, less than a heartbeat, Garrett's fork paused halfway to his mouth. His eyes flickered to Bianca. Bianca stopped chewing. "French food is too heavy," Garrett said, recovering instantly. "Stick to the organic stuff, babe." He smiled. It was the same smile he gave me on our wedding day. It made me want to scream. From that moment on, the house changed for me. It wasn't a home anymore, it was a battlefield. And I was behind enemy lines. I stopped talking at dinner. I stopped engaging with Lorraine's insults. When I walked into a room, the conversation would die instantly. They would look at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance, like I was an unwanted guest in my own house. "Why is she always so moody?" I heard Lorraine whisper to Roger one evening in the living room. "Garrett is a saint for putting up with her." "She works hard, Lorraine," my father mumbled. "She's cold," Lorraine snapped. "Just like her mother." I retreated to my office. But instead of designing clothes, I started auditing my own company. I logged into the back end of our accounting software. Garrett had set up the system, but I still had admin access, something I don't think he realized I remembered how to use. I started looking at the vendor list. Most of the names were familiar: fabric suppliers in India, shipping logistics in California, packaging companies in Oregon. But then I saw a recurring payment that stood out. G&B Ventures. It was listed under consulting fees, marketing and strategy. The payments were small at first. $2,000 here. $1,500 there. Just enough to slip under the radar of a monthly review, but frequent enough to add up. Over the last 3 months, coinciding exactly with my family's arrival, the total transferred to G&B Ventures was nearly $30,000. I searched the company name in our vendor database. No address. No tax ID listed. Just a bank account number. G&B Garrett and Bianca? It seemed too obvious. Too stupid. But arrogant people often make stupid mistakes because they think no one is watching. I stared at the screen, the blue light reflecting in my eyes. My husband wasn't just cheating on me. He was stealing from me. He was funding his affair with my money. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and angry. I wiped it away aggressively. Crying wasn't going to get my $30,000 back. Crying wasn't going to save my house. I needed to know exactly what they were planning. And I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed eyes and ears in rooms where I wasn't welcome. I opened a new browser tab and searched for voice-activated recording devices tiny. I hit order with a shaking finger. The war had officially begun. If you are enjoying the story so far, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? Your support helps these stories reach more people. Thank you so much. The package arrived on a Tuesday, disguised in a generic brown Amazon box. To anyone else, it looked like a delivery of office supplies or perhaps a new book. To me, it felt like I was holding a grenade. I waited until the house was empty. Garrett was at the office, supposedly meeting with investors. Bianca had dragged Lorraine to the mall to spend money she didn't have. Roger was at the park, feeding ducks, his only escape from Lorraine's constant nagging. I took the box to my bedroom and locked the door. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely slice the tape with my scissors. Inside, nestled in foam, were 3 tiny black rectangles. Voice-activated digital recorders. 500 hours of storage. High sensitivity. I felt a wave of nausea. I was the woman who built a company based on transparency and ethics. I was the wife who believed in open communication. And now, I was bugging my own home like a paranoid Cold War spy. Do it, a voice inside me whispered. It sounded like my mother. Protect what is yours. I started with Garrett's home office. He spent hours in there with the door closed, claiming he needed absolute focus for the quarterly projections. I crawled under his heavy mahogany desk, a gift I had bought him for his 30th birthday, and taped the small device to the underside of the central drawer. It was invisible unless you were lying on the floor. Next was the sunroom. Since moving in, Bianca had claimed this room as her creative space. It was where she took her calls, filmed her TikToks, and, I suspected, where she and Garrett had their private conversations away from the rest of the house. I was tucking the second recorder behind a row of books on the shelf when I heard the front door slam. Morgan? Are you home? It was Bianca. She was back early. Panic seized me. I shoved the recorder deeper behind a copy of The Great Gatsby and stood up, smoothing my skirt. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. In the sunroom. I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Bianca sauntered in, carrying a shopping bag from Sephora. She stopped in the doorway, eyeing me suspiciously. What are you doing in here? I thought you were at the warehouse. I was looking for my earring, I lied, gesturing to the floor. I think I dropped it here yesterday. Bianca looked at the floor, then back at me. Her gaze was sharp, calculating. For a second, I thought she knew. I thought she could smell the deception on me. You should be more careful, she said, popping her gum. You're losing a lot of things lately, aren't you? The double meaning hung in the air. You're losing your husband. You're losing your house. You're losing your mind. I found it, I said, pretending to pick something up from the rug and putting it in my pocket. Did you buy something nice? Just essentials, she said, dropping the bag on the sofa. Garrett gave me a bonus for the social media engagement numbers. He said I'm a natural. That's generous of him, I said, my jaw tightening. Considering the company profits are down. Maybe if the designs weren't so beige, she shrugged. People want excitement, Morgan. Not sustainable linen sacks. She turned her back to me to examine her nails. I walked out of the room, my legs feeling like jelly. I had done it. The traps were set. Now, all I could do was wait for the rats to walk into them. The next 3 days were a blur of anxiety. Every time Garrett went into his office, I held my breath. Every time Bianca laughed in the sunroom, I wondered if the little black box was catching it. I felt dirty. I felt like I was betraying the sanctity of my marriage. But deep down, I knew the marriage was already a corpse. I was just looking for the cause of death. On Friday morning, I retrieved the devices. I waited until everyone had left, Garrett to work, the family to a brunch I wasn't invited to, and collected the recorders. I took them to a coffee shop 3 towns over. I couldn't listen to them in the house. The walls felt like they had ears. I sat in a corner booth, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and plugged the first device into my laptop. The file list was long. Most of it was silence or background noise, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of typing. I fast-forwarded through hours of mundane life. Then, I found a file from Wednesday night, stamped 11:42 p.m. I pressed play. Sound of a door closing. The click of a lock. Is she asleep? It was Garrett's voice. Low. Urgent. Yeah, I saw her light go out an hour ago. She's probably crying over her mom's photo album again. Bianca's voice followed, accompanied by a cruel giggle. My stomach twisted. God, she's so pathetic, Garrett said. I heard the sound of fabric rustling. A zipper. I can't wait until this is over. Living with her is exhausting. She's so earnest. It's boring. Don't worry, baby, Bianca cooed. Just stick to the plan. How much longer? I'm moving the liquid assets as fast as I can without triggering an audit, Garrett replied. I've funneled about 40 grand into the GNB account this month. By the time we file for divorce, Ecoloom will look like it's bleeding cash. The valuation will tank. I'll offer to buy her out for pennies on the dollar to save her from bankruptcy. And the house? Bianca asked. The house is the prize, Garrett said. Lorraine is working on Roger. We'll make a case that you and the baby need stability. The court loves a mother in distress. I froze. I hit pause. My hand flew to my mouth. The baby. I rewound 10 seconds. I needed to hear it again. I needed to be sure. We'll make a case that you and the baby need stability. I pressed play again, letting the recording continue. I'm already showing a little, Bianca said. I can't hide it forever, Garrett. I'm 14 weeks. The timing matches that business trip you took to Chicago perfectly. We'll announce it soon, Garrett assured her. But we have to frame it right. We tell Morgan it was an accident. An ex-boyfriend. We play on her sympathy. She's soft. She'll want to help. Once the baby is born, her guilt will keep her paying for everything. I hate that she touches your things, Bianca whispered. I hate that she sleeps in your bed. Not for long, Garrett said. Soon, it'll just be us. You, me, and the kid. And this big, beautiful house. The audio dissolved into sounds I couldn't bear to listen to. Wet, intimate sounds. I ripped the headphones off my head and threw them onto the table. I scrambled out of the booth and ran to the coffee shop bathroom. I barely made it to the stall before I threw up. I retched until my stomach was empty, until my throat burned and my eyes watered. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the calculated malice of it. They weren't just having an affair. They were dismantling my life, piece by piece, and laughing about it. They viewed my kindness as weakness. They viewed my love as a resource to be mined until it ran dry. I sat on the cold tile floor of the bathroom, wiping my mouth with a rough paper towel. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes red. But something had changed behind them. The sadness was gone. The confusion was gone. In their place was a cold, hard resolve. Garrett was right about one thing. I was earnest. I was soft. But he forgot who raised me. He forgot that I was Evelyn's daughter. And he forgot that you never, ever back a cornered animal into a wall unless you want to see its teeth. I walked back to the booth, packed up my laptop, and saved the files to 3 different cloud servers. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to war. I didn't go home immediately. I couldn't face them yet. Instead, I drove to the city, to a glass-walled building that smelled of expensive cologne and intimidation. I had an appointment with Fiona, a shark of a divorce attorney who had represented my mother's friend during a nasty split years ago. Margot had given me her number with a warning: she's expensive, and she's ruthless. Use her only if you want to scorch the earth. I wanted to scorch the earth. I sat in Fiona's office, the recordings and the iPad screenshots laid out on her desk. Fiona listened to the audio, her face an unreadable mask of professional detachment. When it finished, she took off her glasses and looked at me. "This is brutal," she said calmly. "But it's also a gift." "Can I fire him?" I asked. "Can I kick them out tonight?" "No," Fiona said sharply. "Absolutely not." I blinked. "Why?" "He's stealing from me. He's sleeping with my sister. If you fire him now, he'll claim wrongful termination," Fiona explained, tapping a pen against the desk. "He'll claim the money transfers were authorized business expenses that you simply didn't understand. He'll say the recording was obtained illegally, which, in this state, is a gray area depending on expectation of privacy. He will drag this out for years, and he will drain your accounts in legal fees. So what do I do?" "We let him dig the hole deeper," Fiona said, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. "He thinks you're stupid, Morgan. Use that. Let him continue the transfers. Let him continue the affair. We need to link the money directly to his personal benefit. We need proof of intent to defraud." She pulled out a legal pad and started sketching a diagram. "We need to find out where GMB Ventures is registered. We need to find out if he's using company funds to pay for personal assets, cars, apartments, baby supplies. And most importantly, we need them to lie under oath." "Lie under oath?" "Eventually, they are going to make a move for the house," Fiona predicted. "Based on the recording, their plan is to claim constructive trust or demand child support by claiming you accepted a parental role. When they file that motion, they will have to submit financial affidavits. Garrett will hide the stolen money. And when he signs that affidavit lying about his assets, that is when we nail him. That is prison time, Morgan. Not just a divorce." I looked at the diagram. It was a trap. A long, painful trap that required me to live with the enemy for weeks, maybe months longer. "Can you do it?" Fiona asked, her eyes piercing mine. "Can you go home, cook him dinner, and pretend you don't know he's planning to destroy you?" I thought about the recording. She's so pathetic. It's boring. I thought about my mother's china, wrapped in newspaper. "Yes," I said, my voice cold. "I can do it." "Good," Fiona said. "Now, let's talk about GMB Ventures." Using my admin access and Fiona's resources, we spent the next 2 hours tracing the digital trail. It wasn't hard. Garrett was arrogant. He had registered GMB Ventures in Delaware, but the mailing address was a P.O. box in our town. The signatory on the bank account wasn't Garrett. It was Bianca. But the IP address used to access the bank account? It matched the IP address of my home, and specifically, the MAC address of Garrett's laptop. We found more. Emails between Garrett and a graphic designer, paid for with Ecoloom funds, discussing logos for a new brand called Velvet and Vine. Velvet and Vine. It was a direct ripoff of Earth and Weave. They weren't just going to take my money. They were going to launch a competitor using my capital, my contacts, and my market research. They were going to kill Ecoloom and wear its skin. "This is industrial espionage," Fiona said, impressed. "He's going for a total wipeout. He wants to leave me with nothing," I realized. "Correct," Fiona said. "So, we leave him with nothing first." I left Fiona's office as the sun was setting. The city lights were blurring in the twilight. I felt a strange sense of calm. The fear was gone. The uncertainty was gone. I drove home. When I walked through the front door, the smell of burnt garlic hit me. Lorraine was cooking again. "You're late," Garrett said, coming out of the living room. He kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. Sorry, I said, forcing a tired smile. Long day at the office. Just trying to figure out why the cash flow is so tight. I watched his eyes. There was a flicker of panic, quickly hidden. Don't worry about it, babe, he said, rubbing my shoulder. I'll handle the numbers. You just focus on the pretty designs. Okay, I said. I trust you, Garrett. He smiled. He thought he had one. He had no idea I was already holding the shovel to bury him. Thanksgiving arrived with a gray, ominous sky. The house, usually filled with the scent of my mother's roasted sage stuffing, smelled instead of store-bought pumpkin pie and tension. Fiona had advised me to wait. Let them get comfortable, she had said. Let them think they have one. They will get careless. So, I hosted the dinner. I set the table with the everyday plates. My mother's china was still boxed up in the attic, hostage to Lorraine's whims. We sat down at 6. Roger was already 3 glasses of wine deep, his face flushed. Lorraine was criticizing the turkey, claiming it was too dry even though she hadn't lifted a finger to help cook it. Garrett sat at the head of the table, my father's seat, acting the part of the benevolent patriarch. Bianca was glowing. Not with health, but with smugness. She pushed her food around her plate, checking her phone every 2 minutes. I have an announcement, she said suddenly, tapping her fork against her glass. The table went silent. Garrett looked at her, feigning surprise. It was a performance worthy of a daytime soap opera. I know things have been stressful lately, Bianca began, glancing at me. But something amazing has happened. I'm pregnant. Roger dropped his fork. Pregnant? But, you don't even have a boyfriend. It's complicated, Dad, Bianca sighed dramatically. It was my ex, the guy from college. He's not in the picture anymore. He doesn't want the baby. But I do. Lorraine clapped her hands together, tears instantly welling in her eyes. Oh, my baby is having a baby. A grandbaby. Roger, isn't it wonderful? I suppose, Roger stammered, looking bewildered. Then, all eyes turned to me. They were waiting for a reaction. They expected the old Morgan, the pushover, the fixer, to offer support, to promise to help raise the child. I took a sip of water to hide the smirk threatening to break through my facade. I knew exactly who the father was. I knew exactly when the baby was conceived. Congratulations, Bianca, I said, my voice steady. That is a big responsibility. It is, Garrett said solemnly, reaching out to squeeze Bianca's hand across the table. But she won't be doing it alone. We're family. We step up. Exactly, Lorraine chimed in. She turned her gaze on me, her eyes narrowing. And speaking of stepping up, we need to talk about arrangements. The baby will need a nursery. We can clear out the guest room, Roger suggested. No, Lorraine said firmly. That room is too drafty. The baby needs the south-facing room. The sewing room. My blood ran cold. The sewing room was my sanctuary. It was where I started Ecoloom. It was where my mother's original sewing machine still sat, untouched since she died. It was the heart of the house. That's my office, Lorraine, I said, gripping the tablecloth under the table. You have a huge office at the warehouse, Lorraine countered. You don't need to. Besides, surely a baby is more important than a few spools of thread. You wouldn't be selfish enough to deny your niece or nephew a warm room, would you? Garrett nodded in agreement. She has a point, Morgan. It's the warmest room in the house. We can move your sewing stuff to the basement. It's just storage anyway. I looked at them. The 3 of them, united in their greed. They weren't asking, they were taking. They were carving up my home before my body was even cold. We'll see, I said, forcing a tight smile. Let's just enjoy the pie for now. I'll take that as a yes, Bianca said, rubbing her still flat stomach. I'm going to paint it yellow. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just cut a piece of pie and ate it. It tasted like ash. I looked at Garrett. He winked at me, a gesture of camaraderie that made my skin crawl. He thought he had me cornered. He thought he had successfully planted his heir in my home, securing his claim to the estate forever. Enjoy the victory lap, Garrett, I thought. Because the finish line is a cliff. The following Monday, the trap snapped shut. I arrived at the Ecoloom office at 7 in the morning. I wasn't alone. With me were 2 private security guards and a representative from Human Resources. I sat in my office and waited. At 9 sharp, Garrett strolled in. He was whistling, carrying a coffee. He waved at the receptionist and headed straight for my door. "Morning, babe," he said, opening the door without knocking. I was thinking, for the Q4 budget, we should. He stopped. He saw the security guard standing by the window. He saw the HR rep sitting with a notepad. And he saw me, sitting behind my desk, not smiling. "What is this?" he asked, his smile faltering. "Sit down, Garrett," I said. "I'm not sitting down." "Who are these goons?" "They are here to escort you out," I said, sliding a thick envelope across the desk. "You are fired. Effective immediately." Garrett laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Fired? Morgan, stop playing. You can't fire me. I'm the CFO. I'm your husband. You are fired for gross negligence and conflict of interest," I stated calmly. "We found the irregularities in the accounts. We know about the payments to unverified vendors." I kept it vague. I didn't mention GNB Ventures by name. I didn't mention the recording. I wanted him to panic, but not to know exactly how much I knew. Those are legitimate expenses." Garrett stammered, his face turning red. "You don't understand finance, Morgan. I was optimizing our tax strategy." "You can explain that to the lawyers," I said. "Hand over your company phone and laptop. Now." "This is insane," he spat. "You're having a breakdown. Is this about the nursery? Are you that petty?" "Phone and laptop, Garrett." He slammed them onto the desk. "You'll regret this. You'll beg me to come back when the IRS comes knocking because you don't know how to run your own books." "I think I'll manage," I said. "Security, please escort Mr. Brooks out of the building." As they dragged him out, yelling threats, I picked up my phone. "Send Bianca in." Bianca walked in 5 minutes later, looking confused. She saw the empty desk where Garrett usually sat. "Where's Garrett?" she asked. "He doesn't work here anymore," I said. "And neither do you." "Excuse me?" She laughed, popping her hip. "You can't fire me. I'm pregnant. That's, illegal." "You're an independent contractor, Bianca," I corrected her. "And your contract has a termination clause. Your services are no longer required." "You be asterisk 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 asterisk," she hissed, her mask dropping instantly. "You're just jealous because I'm having a baby and you're dried up." "Security," I said, not even looking at her. After they were gone, I drove home. I met the locksmith in the driveway. While he changed the locks on the front door, I packed their bags. I didn't pack them neatly. I threw clothes into trash bags. I swept cosmetics off the bathroom counter into a box. When Garrett, Lorraine, and Roger arrived 2 hours later, Garrett had clearly called them in a panic. They found their belongings piled on the front porch. "Morgan!" Roger shouted, banging on the locked door. "What is the meaning of this? You can't throw family out on the street." I opened the second-floor window and looked down at them. "You have 24 hours to collect your things from the porch," I called down. "After that, I'm calling the dump." "It's winter." Lorraine shrieked, clutching her coat. "Bianca is pregnant. Have you no heart?" "I did," I said. "You broke it. I'm suing you." Garrett screamed, shaking his fist at the window. I'm taking half the company. I'm taking this house. Get a good lawyer, Garrett, I said. You're going to need one. I shut the window and locked it. For the first time in months, the house was silent. I leaned my back against the wall and slid down to the floor. I was shaking. It wasn't over. I knew it wasn't over. But the parasites were gone. Silence, I learned, could be violent. The house was empty, but the war had just moved to a different battlefield, the internet. 2 days after the eviction, my phone started blowing up. Notifications from Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok were coming in so fast the battery drained in an hour. I opened TikTok. The first video on my For You page was Bianca. She was sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room, wearing no makeup, her eyes puffy. She was crying. Hi guys, she sniffled, wiping her nose with a tissue. I didn't want to make this video. I really didn't. But I don't know where else to turn. My sister, my own sister, kicked me out. I'm 4 months pregnant. It's freezing outside. She changed the locks while we were gone. She fired me and her husband, my brother-in-law, who has been nothing but an angel, because she's jealous of my baby. The video cut to a photo of my house, my beautiful, private sanctuary, and then a photo of me at an Ecolum gala, looking rich and untouchable. She has a 10-bedroom mansion, Bianca sobbed. And she couldn't spare one room for her family. Please, if you buy from Ecolum, just know who you're supporting. A monster. The video had 2 million views. I read the comments. At user 123, boycott Ecolum. Disgusting behavior. At Sarah Smiles, imagine doing that to a pregnant woman. Karma is coming. At Justice for B, let's flood her reviews. My heart hammered in my chest. I went to the Ecolum website. We had received 401-star reviews in the last hour. Orders were being cancelled. A major boutique in New York emailed me saying they were pausing our partnership due to the recent controversy. They were destroying my reputation. They were burning down everything I had built. I called Fiona. Don't respond, she ordered. Do not post a defense. Do not engage. They are ruining me, Fiona. I cried. Sales are down 40%. People are calling me a monster. Let them, Fiona said coldly. This video is evidence. It proves malice. It proves they are trying to leverage public opinion to extort you. And guess what just landed on my desk? What? The lawsuit. She emailed it to me. I opened the PDF. Garrett Brooks and Bianca Walsh versus Morgan Dixon. It was exactly what Fiona had predicted. Count 1, constructive trust. They claimed that by allowing them to live there and accepting rent, which was a lie, they never paid a dime, but Garrett had transferred small amounts from my account to his and labeled it house contribution to create a paper trail. I had implicitly agreed that the house was a shared family asset. Count 2, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Count 3, support for the family unit. They were demanding $5,000 a month in interim support for Bianca and the unborn child, claiming I had assumed a parental role by hiring her and housing her. They are claiming I promised to adopt the baby, I said, reading the document in disbelief. This is insane. It's a shakedown, Fiona said. They want you to settle. They want you to write a check for $1 million to make it go away. I won't give them a cent, I said. Good, Fiona said. Because we have a court date next week. And they have made a fatal mistake. What mistake? They filed financial affidavits claiming poverty, Fiona said. Garrett swore under penalty of perjury that he has less than $2,000 in his bank account. He didn't declare the GMB Ventures account. I felt a cold thrill of victory. He walked right into it, I whispered. He did, Fiona agreed. Stay off social media, Morgan. Let the world hate you for 1 more week. Because when we walk into that courtroom, we aren't just going to win. We are going to end them. I put down the phone. Outside, snow was starting to fall. I looked at the dark windows of the empty house. Let them scream on the internet. Let them play the victim. The truth was coming. And it had a play button. The day of the hearing was bitter cold. The courthouse steps were slick with ice, a fitting welcome for the circus that was about to unfold inside. I walked up the steps with Fiona flanking me like a bodyguard. To my horror, a small group of protesters had gathered near the entrance. They were holding signs. One read, "Ecoloom equals Ecodoom." Another read, "Family first, profits last." "Keep walking," Fiona murmured, gripping my elbow. "Don't look at them. Don't react." Inside, the air was stale and smelled of floor wax. We entered family courtroom 4B. My family was already there. They sat on the left side of the aisle. Garrett was wearing a suit that looked slightly too big for him, a calculated choice, I realized, to make him look gaunt and stressed. Bianca was wearing an oversized maternity dress that emphasized her bump, clutching a tissue. Lorraine sat between them, patting their hands, playing the role of the protective matriarch perfectly. Roger sat on the end, staring at his shoes. They didn't look at me. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Holloway with glasses perched on the end of her nose, banged her gavel. "We are here for the matter of Brooks and Walsh versus Dixon. Emergency motion for spousal support and interim housing." Garrett's lawyer, a slick man with greased back hair named Mr. Sterling, stood up. He didn't waste time. "Your Honor," he began, his voice dripping with righteous indignation. "This case is a tragedy. My clients, Mr. Brooks and Ms. Walsh, are victims of a vindictive, unstable woman who has used her wealth to abuse her family." I dug my fingernails into my palms under the table. "Ms. Dixon," Sterling continued, pointing a finger at me, "has illegally evicted a pregnant woman in the dead of winter. She has terminated her husband's employment without cause during a mental health crisis. We are asking the court to intervene. We are asking for immediate access to the marital home, which Ms. Dixon promised, verbally and through her actions, was a shared family asset. And we are asking for $5,000 a month in support so Ms. Walsh can feed her unborn child." "Call your first witness," Judge Holloway said, looking bored. Bianca took the stand. She was an excellent actress. She cried on cue. "I just wanted to be a family," she sobbed into the microphone. "Morgan, she's always been jealous of me. Because I can have children and she's focused on her career. When I told her I was pregnant, she snapped. She threw my clothes in the snow." "And what is your relationship with Mr. Brooks?" Sterling asked. "He's my brother-in-law," Bianca said, widening her eyes innocently. "He's been like a father figure to me since my own dad is getting older. He just wanted to protect me." "Thank you," Sterling said. "Your witness." Fiona stood up. She didn't approach the stand. She just looked at Bianca. "Ms. Walsh," Fiona said clearly. "You claim you have no assets and no income. Is that correct?" "Yes," Bianca sniffled. "Morgan fired me." "So you have no bank accounts with significant funds? No hidden savings?" "No," Bianca said. "I'm broke." No further questions. Next was Garrett. He looked more composed, but I could see the sweat on his upper lip. "I loved my wife," he told the court. "But she changed. She became paranoid. She started accusing me of things that weren't true. I tried to manage the company finances to save her from herself, but she didn't understand the tax laws. Now, she's destroyed my reputation. I have $60 in my checking account, Your Honor. I can't even buy groceries." I watched him lie. It was mesmerizing. He believed his own narrative. He believed he was the hero of this story. Fiona leaned over to me. "Ready?" "Burn him," I whispered. Fiona walked to the podium. She held a single piece of paper in her hand. "Mr. Brooks," she began. "You just stated under oath that you have $60 to your name. You signed a financial affidavit swearing that you have no interest in any other businesses or corporations. Is that your testimony?" "It is," Garrett said, looking annoyed. "I told you, she took everything." "Then can you explain," Fiona said, her voice rising slightly, "what G&B Ventures is?" The color drained from Garrett's face. It happened so fast it was like someone pulled a plug. That's a consulting shell," he stammered. "It's defunct. There's no money in it." "Your Honor," Fiona said, turning to the judge. "I would like to submit Exhibit C. These are certified bank statements from the First National Bank of Delaware for G&B Ventures. The account was opened 4 months ago. The signatory is Bianca Walsh. The deposits, totaling $42,000, traced directly from the Ecoloon corporate accounts via transfers authorized by Mr. Brooks." The courtroom went silent. Even the radiator seemed to stop hissing. "Objection!" Sterling yelled, standing up. "This is ambush." "It's impeachment," Fiona countered coolly. "But I'm not done." She turned back to Garrett. "Mr. Brooks, you also claimed your relationship with Ms. Walsh is purely familial. You claimed you are merely a father figure. "That's right," Garrett said. His voice was shaking now. He looked at the exit sign. "Your Honor, I have one final piece of evidence," Fiona said. "A digital recording made in the marital home on November 14th. "Play it," Judge Holloway ordered, leaning forward. Fiona pressed a button on her laptop. The speakers crackled. Then, Garrett's voice filled the room. "I can't wait until this is over. Living with her is exhausting. She's so earnest. It's boring." Bianca gasped in the gallery. Lorraine covered her mouth. Then Bianca's voice, "I'm already showing a little. The timing matches that business trip you took to Chicago perfectly." And finally, the nail in the coffin. Garrett's voice, "Soon, it'll just be us. You, me, and the kid. And this big, beautiful house." Fiona stopped the recording. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. It was the sound of a lie dying. I looked at Garrett. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his hands, which were gripping the witness stand so hard his knuckles were white. "Mr. Brooks," Judge Holloway said. Her voice was ice cold. "You have perjured yourself in my courtroom. You have submitted falsified financial documents. And you have admitted to conspiracy to defraud your wife on tape." It was taken out of context," Garrett whispered. "It was pathetic." "Sit down," the judge snapped. The ruling was swift and brutal. Judge Holloway dismissed their motion for support with prejudice. She ordered an immediate freeze on the G&B Ventures account. She granted me a permanent restraining order against Garrett and Bianca. Furthermore, the judge said, glaring at Garrett, "I am referring this transcript and the evidence to the district attorney's office. I suggest you find a criminal defense attorney, Mr. Brooks. You are going to need one." The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. Chaos erupted. Sterling was trying to pack his briefcase and leave before the press saw him. Lorraine was screaming at Roger, blaming him for not stopping this. Bianca was sobbing, for real this time, realizing the money, and the house, were gone. I stood up. I smoothed my skirt. I didn't look at them. I walked down the aisle, past the gallery, past the protesters outside who were now confused as the news broke on Twitter. I walked to my car. The air was cold, but it felt clean. I drove home. The house was quiet. I walked into the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. I walked into the living room, where the leopard print chair used to be. It was empty. I walked up the stairs to the sewing room. The yellow paint swatches Bianca had left on the wall were still there. I went to the closet and pulled out a box. I unwrapped my mother's china, piece by piece. I washed the dust off the delicate floral patterns. I placed them back in the cabinet, exactly where they belonged. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Roger. "Morgan, please. Lorraine kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. I'm your father." I looked at the message. I thought about the man who sat silently while his wife packed my mother's things. I thought about the man who watched his daughter get humiliated in court and said nothing. I typed one word, "No." Then I blocked the number. I sat in my mother's chair, holding a warm cup of tea, looking out at the snow-covered garden. The lavender scent was faint, but it was there. The house breathed around me. It was bruised, and so was I. But we were still standing. My father is currently staying in a homeless shelter because I refused to pay for his motel room. He says I am heartless for punishing him for crimes he didn't commit, only watched. Do you think I should have helped him, or is silence a crime too? Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice and revenge. And don't forget to answer the question in the comments below. I'll be reading them.